Hi, Mike.
Let's take a look at Australian politics first, and the Abbott government is still very new, but they've already got a major issue on their hands. Take a look at this.
No one's saying who they are, but they appear to be asylum seekers. If so, it's a second boat arrival under the week-old Abbott government. These exclusive pictures show up to 20 were taken into Darwin, put on a bus with curtains drawn and driven to an undisclosed location. The government saying nothing until the weekly briefing on Monday. It came as Julie Bishop's charm offensive continued at the UN,
Nice to meet you.
though conceding more work's needed with Jakarta, as an Indonesian news agency quoted Minister Nadalagawa saying he warned Ms Bishop against any boat policy that threatens his country's sovereignty.
So Tony Abbott campaigned on taking a hard line on asylum seekers and sorting this whole issue out. How's he doing?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Let's just go for backstory for a second. Kevin Rudd, in his last throes in the election, he created a policy that was unprecedented, at least for Australia. He said if you arrive by boat, and even if you're found to be a genuine refugee, you will be sent to Manus and Nauru and then ultimately settled in PNG. You will not be able to settle in Australia. Abbott has been continuing that policy in full force. Now, people who, there's no exceptions, women and tragically children are also included in this, and it affects them greatly. But people who are against this policy, people like former Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, have called this sending people to gulags in the third world. What's happened this week is Immigration Minister Scott Morrison has come out and said, by the way, we're actually not going to tell you when boat people arrive. In fact, we're not going to tell you when we turn a boat around, and we're not going to tell you if there's even deaths at sea. Well, as you can imagine, the opposition went nuts on this one, as did the media, saying that transparency should be paramount here. They backpedaled and said, all right, we'll give you weekly briefings, but we won't, no promises. And that's where they're at. Now, no matter how you feel about the issue in general, the Australian public does want that kind of transparency. 84% polled said we want real-time information.
Okay, so that's Australia, but what about internationally? What about Indonesia?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Right now, things aren't looking very pretty between the two countries because Abbott came out so tough in the election saying we're going to flip these people around in 48 hours. We're going to spend $198 million creating these transit points in Indonesia and countries around the region. And as you saw in the clip, Indonesia is saying, what about our sovereignty here? You need to treat us as a fair partner and not be the police of this issue.
We're going to take a look at another political issue now, and another major issue for a government leader, President Barack Obama in the United States. And look what's happening with Obamacare.
80% of Americans say threatening a shutdown is no way to negotiate. If there is a shutdown, 44% say they will blame the Republicans, 35% said they would blame the president and the Democrats. One Republican who is in the thick of this is Ted Cruz of Texas.
After 21 hours and 19 minutes, Ted Cruz stepped off the Senate floor and declared victory.
This was all about elevating the debate in the public and giving the American people a chance to speak.
But once other Republicans had the chance to speak, they said they disagreed with Cruz and did not want to hold up a funding bill and risk a government shutdown just to wage a doomed fight to defund Obamacare.
Elevating the debate. I feel a Tui's billboard coming on here.
You know, he was not Mr. Smith Goes to Washington by a long stretch. Ted Cruz, freshman senator from Texas, Tea Party darling, only been in the office for 9 months. And what does he do? He takes 21 hours of an unofficial filibuster to make an advertisement for Ted Cruz. Even his own colleagues were pretty disdainful about this. But it was great television, and I have to say, it's one of the things I love about American politics. He did his Darth Vader impersonation. He read Green Eggs and Ham. Yes, and I love this one. He quoted Ashton Kutcher from the Team Choice Award speeches. You know, you can't get governance better than that. What happened at the end of this 21 hours, well, the Senate voted to 100 to 0, and they never vote 100 to 0 on anything, to continue on. What he did do was alienate a lot of senior Republicans, and people like John McCain can barely tolerate him behind closed doors. And when he actually made the analogy of calling funding Obamacare as being analogous to appeasing the Nazis, McCain came out and went, this isn't right, mate.
And clearly public opinion is against the Republicans trying to have some sort of financial cliff here.
Well, that's what's happening here. The financial cliff is continually looming, mostly because the Republicans are using this as leverage. They're saying if we can strike down Obamacare and tie it to raising the debt ceiling, then we've got some leverage. But what's just happened, and literally what's just happening today, is the House is debating, and John Boehner is trying to rein in his herd of cats. They're more like a herd of pumas, to say, you guys, you can't keep pouring in half the Republican agenda and tie it to the debt ceiling, which they've just done. And I think perhaps they've gone a bridge too far, because I don't think, if the Democrats are smart, they won't start negotiating, because they've now poured in the kitchen sink, and it's got to stop somewhere.
Tracey Barnett, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Mark.
And that's it for 360 this morning. Thanks for joining us.